Well, hello model car fans. Welcome to the Muscle Car Modeler. My name is Rallye, and here I'm working on my 72 Charger kit bashing project here. And if you've been following along and watching the progress on this one, it's gone quite a bit. There's been a lot that has been done to it. And my last video I did the wood grain on the interior, and I finished the interior. And the body was already painted and clear coated, and a lot of the test fitting has been done. But when it comes to a kit bashing project to the extent of this one, and even though I've done this a few times, I've actually done, this is my 4th time that I've used this AMT chassis in an MPC body. This one's a 72 Charger MPC annual for those that have been following along or recently subscribed, and I've been kit bashing it. I've also done it to a 73 Charger Rallye, and then a 72 Roadrunner and a 73 GTX Roadrunner. So it's really my 4th time, but every time is different. So when it comes to this one, like you can see the entire AMT engine compartment there, but I've added the 446 pack to it. And this is the AMT engine, and in a previous video I added the 6-pack intake, which this is Fireball Model Works, and it's their 1/25th scale one. And even though they offer both 1/24th and 1/25th, this one being the 1/25th scale should be smaller, but it was still wider than the intake that came off of this engine. So to correct for it, move the heads out, and I also moved the heads up a little bit, so they're like an 1/8 of an inch taller, and the intake is taller. So that's created a number of challenges with that. So, and I knew these were coming, so I figured, alright, this is gonna get interesting. So being that the heads got moved up and the engine is essentially just a little bit wider, which looks great, fills the engine compartment, and pretty much everything clears. Some of the issues started to turn up right here. The exhaust manifolds are a little farther apart, so you can see this one doesn't quite line up. And the problem is, I try to move it. If I move it and glue it in place, the torsion bar is right here, so I can't move it. But once the suspension and torsion bar is in, you really don't notice that. You really have to look for it. And then this steering box almost didn't fit. It took quite a bit of shuffling and getting that to fit and getting it in place. And because it's pretty much hitting the manifold right there, and it just was tight to get it in there, and I almost left it out. It's so tight in there you really can't see it, but the kit has it, so I added it. And this side lined up just fine. It turns and everything, it just clears the torsion bar. So I don't have the front suspension in here just yet. I got the entire chassis glued in place, and then the axle, the exhaust pipes, and then detailed those out. So those are painted and they're fine-tuned. So I got all of that working. The rear suspension is right where it needs to be. The front suspension is moved up just a hair forward, which I had this issue on my last one. So I'm trying to decide if I'm going to work with that. There's just a little bit, but to show you, so here's my other Charger, the 73 Charger that I've shown you. And you can see the rear wheels line up just right, and this thing, same thing. But the front wheel wells just a little bit forward, and doesn't really bother me, but I could make it a little bit better. But I think it has to do with the size of these tires and the detail right there. So, and these are MPC tires and MPC wheels, and I just adapted them and got them to fit, and I left it alone. So it really doesn't bother me. But it's the same issue coming with that. So, but everything else on this one, being that this engine is not modified at all, the entire engine compartment is from AMT, and then you can see the AC lines are here, the compressor's here, this AC line's here. Those are all from the kit. I had to delete all of those parts because a 446 pack does not have AC. Even though technically in 72 the 446 pack wasn't available, but yet 3 cars are known to exist, which is what I'm kind of having fun with that car, just kind of making one of them, even though it's not 100% true to the 2 known 446 Chargers. but I'm just having a little bit of fun with it. And so it's kind of a what if, but there were a couple made. But anyway, this one, everything just fit and everything went in there and wasn't an issue. And this one's, you know, so you can see the torsion bar right here and the exhaust manifold, where this one, even though I move the exhaust, it gets closer to the bar, it's far enough away, but on this side they're against each other, so I have that issue. But everything else just fit and dropped right in place. This one has the regular exhaust, which is what AMT gives you in the stock version, but the Super V version has those exhaust tips. So I've done a little bit more kit bashing, which means I had to modify these, which you saw I cut those out or drilled into them a little bit for the trumpet exhaust to go through it. But so like this one's been done, and I didn't do any modifications or changes to the suspension. I left the tires alone, but the front end's just a little bit farther forward. But I left it all alone. I didn't feel like moving everything back, which would have shifted the engine compartment, or maybe just move the subframe back a little bit, but then it hits the oil pan. So if I do anything, I'll do it strictly on the knuckles, and you probably won't even notice if I move the wheel back and glue it back in place. So I haven't decided on how to tackle that issue, but we'll set that aside. I've got other issues going on though, and it's not really to be expected. See, here's the 71 Charger's wheels and tires are a little bit small. I really don't like them that way. And here's the ones I've got. Now these are AMT tires also, and they're in a bunch of other, and these are resin copies of the 72 3 and 4 Rallye wheel with a different center cap. But the overall diameter of the tire is the same. It's the width that's different. So a much more meatier tire. I like these tires over these tires, and I like the Rallye wheel size a little bit better. But one of the issues is right here. The wheel backs, they're a bit small. They get right up in there real tight, and they can go right through the wheel. And then I've got the mounting system where you put that insert in and glue it to the stud. So I know they'll work on their rear, but I may have to work on spacing because it may be pushing the wheel out just a little bit. But I think they'll look good on the back, but the front, we'll see where they go. They might be a little towards the front like this. Now if I can get them forward or maybe up a little bit, I'll see what I can do and tweak on that. But when it comes to kit bashing this many parts together, you run into some of these issues, and it's constant fitting and fitting and fitting and making it work. So it makes final assembly much slower. And speaking of, like I mentioned, I removed the AC, so that's all gone. I put a screen in here, so if you can see it, there's a screen in there. So I removed the condenser, put in a screen, and then just detailed out the grill. It's looking really good, and also the rear tail panel. This is looking really good. I tried to do the blackout back here. It's not 100% accurate. I had an issue and I couldn't overcome it, so I left it all black instead of having the red outline. But I left that alone. And but I like the way it's coming out here, and I foiled that. These were foiled, but I found in my Keith Marks decals he had those Charger emblems on there, so I took the foil off and put the actual emblem from the decals on there. They look much better. And I need to foil the marker lights here, but I've got some issues going on under the hood, mainly because I want to use the air grabber. So there's the air grabber hood, but I want it to be more accurate, so I added this piece. This is a resin copy of the Johan piece from the 70 GTX and 70 Roadrunner kits, and this is available from Hart's Parts. You got to buy the 70 hood, the air grabber, and this piece, but he may sell it separately. I bought the entire hood, mainly because I have plans for the actual hood to graft it to something else and do the air grabber, but this piece I wasn't planning on using. But I had to do some clearancing here, so I had to notch here and here, mainly because as I was making clearancing everything, the distributor and this hose I needed to notch them for that and get it glued in place. So now the hood lays down pretty flat. It's not 100% square. Well, it fits pretty good without the air cleaner. But you can see how close those carbs are. Now on this air cleaner, I really thinned it out and hollowed it. This is a Johan air cleaner, also from the 70 GTXs and Roadrunners, and even the Surround. But I thinned it all out, opened it all up so it'll clear. But even right here, there's a notch I had to do right here. And that kind of surprised me as it snuck up on me. As you can see it now. There's where the vacuum advance is. And it's just hitting it. And I could have turned it out a little bit, but that's where it ended up glued. And it hits right there. So I notched it just a little bit so that it would clear and get the air cleaner to sit. And then also the wiper motor, I had to make a notch in the back so that it would clear the wiper motor. So now it's on there and it's pretty snug, and I need to get the air cleaner down just a hair more, but it's almost there. And then here's the air grabber door, but it's got some fingers on the back. You see those right there? They hit the air cleaner, so I got to remove those, glue this in place. It won't be functional. And then this part that goes on the bottom side that makes it functional also and holds it, the pivots, I won't be able to use this because there's just not enough room. But just making it all work. So lots of final test fitting and getting everything done a little bit. Now this air cleaner, I got it to get it to sit a little more square. But since there's no real flat spots on those carburetors and they look great, it'd be nice to display that just like that. But I like everything closed up. And I've got a few more parts to take care of, just detail paint some more of these things, fit them. Got to foil the wheel opening moldings, some stuff like that. And then one of the last things I want to do is, I'm really thinking about putting hood pins on this one, because hood pins were available. So I'm going to add the hood pins. And my last thought and challenge, originally, this should not be gloss black. It should be like a semi-gloss black. And there's also a small little seam to where the decal folds over, which that's just Keith Marks. And this one's the same way. You can see it there also. And I've actually got an idea that I think I'm going to try. And I may actually try it on that hood first. I don't know. I think I'm going to mask around it and color sand it and knock the shine off it. Hit it with like 4000 grit or something like that, just to knock the shine off of it and give it a bit more of a dull look. And it might even knock that ridge down just a little bit. I just got to be very careful going over the decals, but because the decal is under the clear, but this is automotive clear and it should be just fine. So I think I'm going to give that a try. So I'll mask that off, color sand that, and then I got to color sand the top of this also, which is also sprayed with the same clear. And I think that'll dull it down and give it the nice look. But I'm pretty excited with where this is going, and I'm almost done. I thought it would have been done by now, but there's just a lot of little challenges. But just working on them. And it's funny because when I did it to the Roadrunners, the wheels line up in the wheel wells. So the Roadrunner wheel opening moldings in the MPC bodies is a bit more spot on and evenly spaced than it is on the Charger bodies. And this one, same thing, fit there just as nice. Use it in the same chassis. So I don't have to do any mods when I use the chassis in these two, but it became apparent on this one, and I didn't do anything. This one, because these tires are a little bit wider, I may have to do something, but I have to adapt these wheels and tires to the chassis anyway, so I may be modifying these spindles a little bit. So I don't really know what I'm going to do yet, but that's what makes final assembly on some of these a little slower. The more you plan, the more surprises there are, and every time you change just a little bit, like just changing the 6-pack intake on it with one that was a little bit taller, a little bit wider, moved a few things around, and now I'm running into fitment issues with this or that I didn't have with this one or any of the other ones, but they were a bit more from the kits. But that'll do it for this one. So thank you for tuning in and subscribing and watching and all your comments. I really appreciate it. and like those subscriptions. So if this is content you like, please subscribe. And you guys, you have a wonderful Saturday, and I'll see you next Saturday.